Hello.
Okay. Hello. Okay, let me then start. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we are going to actually make the first technical webinar today. I will try to briefly summarize what is the COVID-X Sandbox, what are the capabilities, what are the expectations from your side and for our joint collaboration during the next period of the COVID-X project and of course of your solutions, of developing your solutions and pushing them to market. My name is Sofía Tsekeridou. I'm a Senior Research Innovation Manager at Intrasoft International. It's Research Innovation Development Department. I will represent the entire technical team of the COVID-X Sandbox. I will explain later who they are. So first, as I said, I will make an introduction to the COVID-X Sandbox. We have now released its full release. We'll summarize later on at high level the technical KPIs or expectations, let's say, per sprint. Then we'll present some main challenges that we also faced during the Open Call 1 and how we have now optimized the methodology and what are the ways ahead for our joint fruitful and effective collaboration in the next period. And then conclude with the upcoming technical webinars that will provide more details in the Sandbox services. But also be open to questions and answers together with the entire technical team that is present today. So just very briefly to summarize how the Sandbox has been described in our grant agreement and what have been our strategic objectives since the ideation and formulation of the COVID-X Sandbox. So our first strategic objective has been to release a reference sandbox to cope with the needs of unifying data and sharing resources towards data-driven COVID-19, of course, addressing. So we have a set of KPIs, and these kind of become also joint KPIs together with you. One has been to ingest public data sets within the Sandbox and the Sandbox data lake, more than 5. This has already been done. To develop relevant data-driven services for third-party solution providers, more than 4. And of course, to have more than 13 entities, that is you using and accessing its data box and its Sandbox. That's why data integration is a mandatory minimum task that we'll jointly do together. Then, of course, we need to address the strategic objective 5, which is to provide a complete iterative approach for technology deployment, testing, and validation in relevant scenarios from different viewpoints: ethical, medical, acceptance, technical, and business view. This relates to the technical work with respect to the KPI to define the number of technologies integrated, deployed, and validated has to be 8. So this actually has the implication of which solutions will be also integrated software-wise. That's why we have also this path of activities. So what is the Sandbox? The Sandbox is a data-centric ecosystem of core enabling services that collectively enable seamless, unified, interoperable access to annotated and cataloged health and other data from heterogeneous data sources. These could be historical data sets from healthcare providers, open data, even data, actually, because we had solutions in the first open call that are to be collected in one or other way during the project execution. The Sandbox also provides data and metadata management, harmonization, storage, querying and retrieval, access, visualization, and federated learning services, which are coupled with advanced security services that enable role-based access control and secure encrypted communications. And we also provide an API gateway that allows both access to data integration APIs as well. Then we can do software tools integration from third parties. Here you see a high-level conceptual diagram of the sandbox, its full release. So you see on the top level all the different types of data that could be ingested in the sandbox, healthcare data sets that should be anonymized, as you will also hear from the respective webinar. Open data sets that may come from medical devices, IoT, wearables, or even mobile apps. And of course, we could integrate the trained models or solutions within the sandbox. There are different data ingestion pipelines for all this that have been developed. As I said, there is a security layer that allows for encryption, logging, monitoring of the data use, secure communications, role-based access control. We set up a distributed data lake that stores data in different ways. But also we have a data catalog that allows the transformation of the data in accordance to the defined unified data model that we have released as well. Harmonize and filter data based on that, and store metadata and descriptions and annotations. Why? For allowing seamless and interoperable access to this data. There is the data storage that also allows indexing of the data for fast querying and retrieval and search. We provide visualization services and custom dashboards, as well as federated learning services. And all this through, as I mentioned, the API gateway that can manage inbound and outbound traffic, request and response transformation, as well logging. I forgot to mention that for the unified data model, we have capitalized on existing relevant metadata standards according also to needs that I will explain later on. So here, the unified data model is presented. Why do we need that? We try through the sandbox services to account for data interoperability. For this to be done, because we receive data from diverse and heterogeneous data sources that may be described in diverse ways. We map the descriptions of this data into the single and unified data model. Because essentially the sandbox is kind of a catalog. We use the DCAT standard, also HL7 standards. DCOM in case of images. We didn't have such case in the first open call, if I recall correctly, but I think we have in the second open call. Here is a very high level description, visualization of the unified data model, which is actually kind of a semantic data model as well. To illustrate what the sandbox is doing, you see here some screenshots of, for example, the data visualization services, the role-based access control and how it is set up, the data search and retrieval services that are retrieved, of course, based on the grid schema, the data spaces that some of the data spaces that have been developed for the Open Call 1 solution providers. The federated learning service, this is a new service released in the full release. You will be provided access to this type of service. What it does is actually to allow, because of GDPR concerns or any type of restrictions, data protection restrictions, ethical restrictions, we provide this federated learning service in order for models to be trained locally at each clinical partner site. Of course, to use this federated learning service, we need to have a local deployment of the sandbox on the clinical partner side. So this capability is given to you for those that will be selecting it. For the team solutions, actually, this is not for the single solutions. And then the federated server has an orchestrator actually that orchestrates this process of retraining and updating the model trained with the data from a locally deployed version to the one with data from another deployed version, as you see here in the figure. So this enhances the clinical partner trust. There is no need, for example, to share data in a third-party infrastructure, even if it is anonymized, etc. As I said, further from the sandbox services per se, we also provide the environment and the tools for integrating your software solution, as this, as I mentioned from the first slide, is a KPI that we also need to meet, and for those interested to use it as well. So we have set up a development environment and relevant continuous integration delivery and deployment tools to integrate the sandbox services with of course, solutions of the third parties joining from both open calls. We have done so for a number of solutions for Open Call 1, and we provide this option to you for Open Call 2. And also the tools allow for full integrated platform testing with your solutions. You see here that well-known such CI/CD tools are used in this development environment. Further from that, we provide an operational environment where the sandbox services and instances and of course the integrated solutions of yours are deployed. Access to those have only the ones, of course, that own both the data and the solutions. We provide two options for the deployment. One is a centralized, and this is already operational on the cloud environment that we provide. In this sandbox, the anonymized data need to be ingested and, of course, further annotated. But also provide the option to locally deploy the sandbox and integrate if desired, your solution to the clinical partner's local infrastructure. Of course, this has to be provided by the clinical partner or by the team in order to do so. Just as a reference, you see here very briefly all the teams of the Open Call 1. We had 3 single solutions that work with our 3 clinical partners within COVID-X and a number of team solutions. And you see here what its third party chose in terms of deployment. Of course, all were requested as it is mandatory to do the data integration part. And of course, the ones also selecting to proceed with software integration as well. And some examples from the Teams solutions. This is for using the validating the data model in using the visualization services, MATCAP, or ingesting, doing software integration for trajecting care for COVID. Now, before coming to questions, I will also briefly summarize what are the high-level KPIs expected for all sprints in OC2. So for sprint 1, and with respect to data integration, we will need, as we requested also through the onboarding questionnaire form, the data schema of the clinical partner data sets and their variables and types of variables, but also information about the data schema and types of input data to the solution that is being that is part of your application of your proposal. Then a data sample that complies with the schema. And once we build this data ingestion pipeline, of course, in collaboration with you, we will need you to test the full data ingestion pipeline. And also, if already available, to test the access API to annotated ingested data in compliance to unified data model. But this is also a target for the second sprint as well, in case the time does not suffice to do it in sprint 1. So as a KPI, and we'll provide more information and measurable KPI details, we need the operational fully tested data ingestion pipeline without errors, and if possible, the operational fully tested access to ingested and annotated data. With respect to software integration for the one selecting it, as we will train you, we will need your containerized solution, Docker container, and of course to fully test the integrated solution with the sandbox, either on the cloud if you use the cloud version or on a locally deployed version of yours. Now, if you choose local sandbox deployment at your own infrastructure, then we will need from your side, as it is also mentioned in the onboarding questionnaire, the setup of the local secure infrastructure for the sandbox deployment, according to the guidelines that we will provide. Also secure access over VPN to be provided to us in order to do the deployment to your infrastructure, and conducts the local team for any technical support during the process. And of course, the target here is to perform a successful deployment at local infrastructure. Once the deployment is done, then of course this version will be used for the prior steps, both the data integration and the software integration. Now in Sprint 2, it's primarily for data integration, hoping that, of course, all the previous steps will be accomplished in Sprint 1. This is the main focus of actually accessing ingested data from the sandbox based on the unified data model. That is, the access APIs will be given to you after we do the mapping to the unified data model of your data schemas. And you will need to test this access API, and this should be a first step, if not completing Sprint 1, to be completed in Sprint 2, because then the full data need to be ingested, either historical if you bring such, or collected within Sprint 2 at the latest and ingested into the sandbox. These data will then be accessed through the access APIs that will provide for seamless access, and not based on your schema, but on the unified schema of the COVID-X. So the target, as I said, is to do the full data ingestion and to have an operational, fully tested access to ingested and annotated data. Sprint 3 is, of course, the last sprint. The full product validation needs to be performed and demonstrated with the results. And for those actually to be using the federated learning and visualization services, we need proof of how these services and results have been used. Okay. So, having the experience from the open call 1, we have seen a number of challenges. We tried, and I think we more or less successfully managed to actually address them. But now we are more wise, so that's why we try to optimize the process with all of you. It is indeed a short time frame, especially for Sprint 1, which lasts 3 months for both data and software integration. We do have many of you, you are plenty, thank God. But this means that we need to interact with all of you at the same time to co-design and develop the solution according to your needs. So that's why we try to carefully plan even ahead, and organize the work and prioritize the delivered services. That's why we came up with this onboarding form and a lot of details asking from your side, but this helps us to organize better the work that is coming ahead. Then we will be closely monitoring and constantly interacting and communicating with you. And in case of issues resolution, please, we have the Slack channels. Just raise an alarm, and we'll try to see and mitigate in the best possible and efficient way. Now, of course, since you may be bringing new and different data sets or even data collection needs with the challenges that you address, we need to potentially update the data model if already such description elements are not within it. So this has proven quite a challenge for us during the open call 1, because we needed to harmonize and define common semantics and description elements for the different data sets and for the different contexts of use. We have tried to build different abstraction layers, of course, to account for the different contexts of use, but we may need also to update based on the information. That's why we want this from sprint 1 of your data schemas. To update within sprint 1 our model, and then the whole data annotation is seamless in sprint 2 and no delays are introduced. We have experienced also a number of solutions that may have had limited continuous integration, continuous deployment knowledge. We have given technical webinars and we optimize and give such in this in the open call 2 phase as well. And of course, we have the Slack channels for all the support necessary. We'll provide all the recordings and deadlines on how you will be able to do this, of course, in case you select it. We think that initial information gathering is vital. And although we did do that also in Open Call 1, we came across cases that we didn't imagine. So now we have collective knowledge and we have updated and detailed all the information that we need from your side. And please provide answers, or if you have already done, thank you, for as much detail as possible, because this will help us to organize everything much better together with you. And of course, constant communication and continuous communication is essential for immediate issue resolution or even for immediate proceeding of the undertaking joint work together. So as I said, some important things, a cloud-based instance of the sandbox is already provided. Local instances could be deployed. We ask you for the decision, so we need to know so as to plan our work, as local deployments mean more efforts for from our side. So we need to organize our work as well together with you. The use of the sandbox is mandatory for data integration, as I mentioned, because this is a KPI for us as well. And why is that as too? Because in this way we are able to provide innovative services. This is both the unified interoperable data access, but also the federated learning. If we don't have the data sets or even the locally deployed versions, then the federated learning service cannot be demonstrated. And we have had a number of interested applicants from Open Call 1 when we didn't yet provide this service, who wanted to use it. So we are thinking how to provide also this opportunity to them as well. So if interested to use the federated learning service, this is something that we forgot to put into the onboarding questionnaire, but we raise it now. Please inform us in Slack by the latest end of December so that we know who is willing, and then based on what data are available, as this requires both locally deployed versions, but also data that are same or similar, to be able to organize to see the feasibility and to organize, of course, all the necessary steps for that. As I said, the data that will be ingested in the sandbox need to be anonymized, especially for the cloud version. We do provide an anonymization guide for that purpose. Kindly note that the clinical partners research partners that provide this data remain responsible and data controllers for the data that they bring into. The access to data, you do not have to worry, it is controlled by the role-based access control services in the sandbox. No unauthorized user has access to this data. Kindly note that the sandbox now, it is in its full release, but still it's not a commercial project, although it is mature. So the aim of the sandbox is to help you and to provide you the core data-driven ecosystem and services so that you may be able to benefit for the especially innovative services like federated learning or unified data access provided to you, and then become more mature, robust, and scale up. That's more ready for market penetration, okay? just to be on the safe side, in case of any issues that you may find, just report them to us immediately. It has been tested now fully for the OpenCall1 solutions, but still, if it's any such instance, we are here to resolve. Now, the technical contact lead is Silvia Uribe from University Polytechnico of Madrid. But we are core 3 technical partners in COVID-X, IntraSoft International, UPM, and 8bells, and we are all involved actually to providing technical support, and we'll be interacting with you. We have set up for that matter the Slack channels in which all of us participate. And there is a series of more technical webinars taking place. And of course, the relevant documentation will provide it to you and the recordings of the technical webinars. So the first one is today, as I mentioned. We have a second one on ethics, legal and security. Another one which will involve primarily questions from your side for software integration, because we already have the recordings and we will provide them to you to view, if not already. And then if you have any questions, to join this webinar and we can resolve them. Another question to demonstrate to you the APIs that you've seen illustrated in screenshots of the sandbox and the visualization services. And finally, the one that focuses on the 2 new full release services, the Unified Data Access and Learning Services to take place. So this is all from my side. I'll open the floor now for any questions. No?
Yes. I have a question. Yes. Well, 2 of them actually. So, but they are short. No, don't worry. So the first one is about the final availability of the COVID-X Sandbox. When are we going to have access to it? I don't know if you have an exact date already or not.
The sandbox is already available actually and running on the cloud. The access in terms of what?
User access. We haven't received any user password access to really access the servers.
Yes, but this means that we have to analyze all the information you've given. I think there was a question of who would like to have access both on our CICD environment and on the sandbox. So we need to provide to proceed in actually issuing these accounts and providing the information to you. So this is when we analyze the information that you have provided, and we plan at least before Christmas or early after that to give access to you. Of course, the access would mean you may be given access, but we need to build the data ingestion pipelines, for example, if you need to access it to ingest data, or we need to provide you access to our GitLab CI/CD if you wish to use the software integration capabilities. So more work needs to be done, the work in parallel for the information that we have been collected. So even if you get access to the sandbox, you will see only the services has now been developed, but not customized services for your solution yet. Because, for example, for the data ingestion, we need to build the data ingestion pipelines. Even for the access APIs, this will be the same. You will have access only to your data or to your types of services for now, not anybody else's. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. In our case, we are a single solution, so we are working with Humanitas. It's a local deployment, so I don't know if it is going to work exactly the same.
Yeah, you're right. Then even if this is the case, then it's more ready for you. You know that solution because yes, because we already locally deployed the sandbox at Humanitas infrastructure. Another solution is already using it, so it will be already easier. From your side, we need to understand which data you absolutely need for your solution. So what are your data inputs? Okay.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And the second one, sorry, maybe this is for later webinars, but just in case, I don't know if you are going to provide with real examples of use, like for instance, especially Elasticsearch queries. I know the technology, but I haven't used it actually. So having like real examples of them can be a little bit.
Just for your information, of course, you don't need to be using the internal, let's say, types of services of the sandbox. You will be using the APIs through the gateway. So we will provide documentation and we will demonstrate how you are using it. So you don't need to know all the technical specificities, let's say, of ALK, etc. You will have access to the APIs that we expose to the third parties.
Okay. Okay.
And it will be fully. You will be trained in the in technical webinar 4 that you see here, and then sorry, 4 and 5. I forgot to change the number, and you will be given guidelines how to use them. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I don't see if there is any other question. No. It seems I have covered everybody's questions already. That's good. Of course, this is a high-level presentation of the sandbox. More details, which I understand is what you're also seeking for, will be provided in the next webinars, and then interacting also on the Slack channels. Yes, there is another question from Mr. Kosmidis.
Yes, good morning from me as well. Thank you for this presentation. Looking at the next steps, and you have the webinar schedule here. Is it possible to go back to the sprint 1 expectation, just to make sure that now that we have a broader picture, we're all aligned? I think this is a very important one.
This one.
Okay. And so here for the data integration, the clinical partner is either the one of the 3 partners or the partner where there is a joint solution, right?
Yes, of course. This, the clinical partner is when we are talking about the team solution.
Okay.
For the single solution, we already have the schema of our clinical partners. What we will require, as I explained to the previous speaker, the previous. Is the input data, the schema for what data you will require for your solution to run.
Okay, great. So in terms of the integration with the 3 partners you have in place already, as soon as we have the access to the sandbox, we'll be able to at least have some sort of level of access there, but the actual data dictionary is something that you're expecting from us. But similarly, we can expect from the clinical partners to have their own specifics, because we have the information about what data types are there, but there's a lot of semantics around that.
Yes, we require that because we will be updating, as I mentioned, the data model, our own data model, which is the common one to annotate all data ingested. That's why we want this as input, if I understood correctly your question.
Well, I mean, you of course need need to know what data we will be providing and what data will be ingested from us.
Yes.
But similarly, for us to start making looking at the specifics of the clinical partner data sets, is there specific annotation somewhere? Is there a semantic analysis that we can have access to?
You're a single solution or a team solution?
Single solution, yes.
Single solution, yes. Which clinical partner are you with?
With KI.
With Karolinska. But in case of Karolinska, they are not providing actual data sets, but the way to collect data.
Okay. So this is what that was the underlying question, that essentially
with Karolinska, because for Humanitas and Sermas we have prospective retrospective data, historical data that we are ingested into the sandbox. Sermas is using the cloud version. Humanitas has a local version of the sandbox, and these are readily available. But for KI, we accommodate a different way of access to data. This is a data collection during sprint 1 and sprint 2, actually, there, because it's usually difficult. And this means that you need to define which data is absolutely necessary for you, and then arrange how this data can be collected.
Got it. Okay, clear. Thank you.
Any other question? I don't see the speakers. Yes.
Yeah. It's just because he has a good point there. In our case, that we are working with Humanitas, it's true that we know the type of data, like the sources of data we will need, but we didn't have access to really what is the actual data that Humanitas is going to be providing, and exactly the structure that Humanitas is going to be providing. So maybe to give you exactly the dictionary of all the data we will need, we will first need access to the data or to some documentation of the Humanitas data to be more specific. Because right now I can tell you that I need like diagnosis data, but I don't know exactly how this translates to actual data structures.
What we will need first is your needs. What data do you need? And then we can provide the types of data that are available.
Okay.
So this is a back and forth. First, we need to, because, for example, both Humanitas and Sermas may have a lot of data sets, but it's not meaningful to provide the description of this huge set of data sets. Actually, they are providing only the subset of the data that are needed by each solution. That's why we first ask, what do you need?
Okay, perfect.
And say, okay, for your needs, we have this. Will this be sufficient, etc.? And this is an ongoing process.
Okay, perfect. We have already given that information of the needs, so that's the first step. Is
So
okay.
No. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other question? I don't see any. Yes, Mr. Nunes, Mrs. or Mr.
Mr. Thank you. Sofía.
Sorry.
No worries. Yes, one quick and maybe silly question. Are you going to share the PowerPoints and the presentation somewhere?
Yes. Both the recording and the PowerPoint will be shared. I don't know, Rita, if the shared folders for the Open Code 2 teams have been set up.
Yes.
Okay, so
there's a folder for each team, and there's a general folder accessible to all the teams.
So it will be put in the general folder. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I ask one question about this last topic? Yes. Because I just tried to access the general shared folder, but I am no longer able to access it. And it asks me to require the access with my Google account.
Can you reach out to me on Slack, please?
I will. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. If you have any such problems, please reach out to Slack and we'll try to resolve them immediately. Any other question? Well, if not, then I would like to thank you very much for being present today and for our first joint interaction after, of course, the onboarding session. Just stay tuned for the next technical webinars. If in doubt or if you have any further question, just post it in Slack. And I hope and actually I wish and encourage that we will collaborate quite fruitfully and effectively in the next period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.